Hello, everybody. Charlotte Wenner here for Structural Noetic Astrology on Sunday. It's been some time since I've been able to record one of these sessions. I've been busy with my master's program in cultural astrology and astronomy at the University of Wales, Trinity St. David. And today I should actually be working on an essay for that program. However, since the subject matter of my talk, namely Venus, and the essay about Ishtar, Inanna, is the same, I thought I could combine both of them in a short talk with you today. So I'm going to start sharing my screen and give you the lowdown on what's going on with Venus even as we speak. So let's go to the slide share. Right. So today I'm going to talk about the Venus retrograde conjunction with the Sun, which occurred last night, a few hours ago, just shortly after midnight here in the Netherlands. And I'd also like to relate it to Inanna's descent and the rebirth of our sense of worth. Just move me up here a little bit and this down a little bit further up, and then let's go. So let me just briefly run down what is happening with Venus now. As you may or may not know, Venus seems sometimes to go backward in the zodiac. This is not actual movement, but it's how we perceive her movement from the Earth as against the fixed stars in the universe. So you can imagine how this works by thinking of a train and a car. If they are traveling at the same speed, they stay next to each other. However, when one of them goes faster, the other seems to lag behind. Now, this same change happens between the relationship of Venus and the Earth. Venus is closer to the Sun, so that means her orbit is shorter. So sometimes she seems to go faster. So that means sometimes she seems to go faster, and sometimes she seems to go slower. So that's why Venus appears sometimes to go backwards in the zodiac. And in the most recent case, we started this period in February. Now, there is a so-called shadow period, and this was discovered by the wonderful astrologer Alexander Ruperti. And he noticed that the meaning of the Venus retrograde and conjunction periods actually started at the moment when Venus first reaches the degree in the zodiac that she will eventually make a conjunction with the Sun at later on. So she first reached 2 degrees Aries, where she is right now, 2 degrees Aries on the 8th of February. So this was the start of the period when we start to reevaluate everything that has to do with Venus, our appearance, our finances, our relationships, our sense of self-esteem, the things we value, our valuables, our material possessions, all of this, we begin to review if these values or behaviors, attitudes actually are what we want in life. Venus then went on until the 2nd of March, where she seemed to stop in the zodiac and then started going backward. And this happened at 11 degrees Aries. Now, these different degrees in the zodiac, if you've got planets in your horoscope at these degrees, these might be more significant moments for you than others. As are the dates. Everybody can look at the dates and start thinking about, okay, what was going on then? Is there anything that was related to this sense of values or things that I value or valuables or relationships that I started to reevaluate? So, as I said last night, Venus in her backwards motion finally came to the exact point in the zodiac where the sun is. And this is 2 degrees Aries. Now, at this point, we can start looking at what we've been reevaluating and put new steps, new ideas, new values, new behaviors, new relationships into place, or at least start taking steps into actualizing this. Venus will continue to go backwards, and on the 27th of March, she's going to go back into Pisces. And on the 13th of April, that's when she stops in the apparent backward motion and starts going forward too. So there may still be between now and the 13th of April, you may still be in the planning or the preparation period in which you define which things you want to put into place, or relationships or possessions or whatever it is. And between the 13th and the 5th, you're going to be taking more definite steps into actually manifesting these in the world and in your relationships and lives. And on the 11th of, on the 16th of, the 5th of May, Venus reaches the degree again where she met the sun. And this means from this point, the activity into these new directions is going to go on at full speed. And on the 16th of May, that's when Venus leaves the shadow period, and the whole new directions, this whole phase is going to be concluded. Pretty much. Of course, you're going to be going on with what you've set into place in these 4 months. And on the 6th of January, that's when the sun meets, Venus meets the sun again, but this time in direct motion. And this is called the inferior conjunction. And this is when you see what the results of this whole four period is going to be on the long term. So this is an exciting period, and I'd like to take a look at some of the other planetary factors which are that are playing a role in this time. So if you see this horoscope, which is based on the world chart, so it's got 0 degrees Aries as the ascendant, you see that a great many objects are centered here on the left, right around the ascendant. So the ascendant is the moment of birth. And as I mentioned in my video on the spring equinox a few days ago, there's a really strong push between moving out of the old and into the new. And that's still apparent here. And you see that Venus is making a lot of close contacts with the sun, of course, but also Mercury. Mercury is also retrograde. So it means you're still going to be internalizing a lot of your ideas. You're still going to be perhaps you won't be making such getting such direct or ideas, or you're going to have to really be looking inside yourself for some period about what you're going to be doing in this Venus period. And you see that Venus is also very close to Neptune. That gives the drive and imagination to go beyond the limitations which you may have been living under for the past cycle, to go beyond insecurities or negative fantasies or ideas, that you'll also have a lot of creative imagination to bring to bear on your new cycle. You see that it's also close to the North Node in Pisces. So that is still a strong indication that this is a time to create, a time to take out of the world of ideas and into the world of 3D reality, which means you're going to have to also be making some 3D steps. So it means it's not enough to just wait back and hope for these things to happen, but to actually take concrete steps. But then again, within the structure, which I just mentioned, reevaluation, conscious awareness, gradual integration into your lives and taking definite steps. I'd also like to share a few other interesting aspects to the Sun-Venus conjunction. So you see that I've mentioned the conjunctions, that's this circle with a line here. But I'd also like to mention the sextile, which is a harmonious aspect with Pluto that the Venus and Sun conjunction makes. So Pluto is the drive to transform yourself in some way, to transform into something higher and greater. And this can feel like a very strong power that comes from without. However, with the sextile, this may be in the people, events, things that you meet up with in your life. And these are opportunities for you to grasp, people that offer transformation or opportunities to do something in a new way. These are possibilities that you will have to consciously put into practice. You can just as easily walk by them or ignore them. So use your highest discernment about which of these will be useful in your new phase. Also, Jupiter is in a quintile aspect. So that's a degree aspect of about 51, 52 degrees. It's actually an unending division decimal. And this points to Jupiter and in its energy as expansion and growth is going to add itself in a way that offers you talent. So a way for you to grow in your Venus areas can be in finances, in your friendships, in your relationship, more freedom, more enthusiasm, more adventure, more education, learning more, broadening your horizons there. And Uranus is also in a minor harmonious aspect, the septile, that's a division of 72 degrees. And this is also something which shows a sort of universal ability. And with Uranus there, that's the drive behind unexpected breakthroughs, radical changes, unexpected events. So these can also give you a little bit of a boost in this whole Venus area. And the only thing, what's also interesting is that the Venus and Sun don't make any aspects with the metaphysical indicators, which you see here at the bottom of the chart, bottom of the table. So this whole Venus area has to do with your physical reality. It really is very much involved with taking the growth in consciousness, which we especially saw at the end of 2024, with the black luminaries aspects with the lunar nodal cross. But now it's time to put these insights, these conscious insights and growth into 3D reality. So that's what the concentration of the Venus and Sun, with making all the aspects with physical planets and also a lot of personal planets in this situation, and the ascendant really has to show of walking your walk. So taking what you've learned in theory and putting it into practice. The only disharmonious aspect to these Sun and the Venus is the square to the moon, but the moon is already at 9 degrees Capricorn, which means it's moving away from the exact square. So there may be some discomfort, some uh, reluctance to leave emotional security and stability, things that may have provided you with some kind of sense of safety. Yeah, you're going to maybe have to get out of your safety zone in initiating these new changes, but these should not present insurmountable difficulties. So I mentioned that I might say something about Inanna and her descent into the underworld. And this is a useful myth to look at because Inanna was later associated with the planet Venus. So originally she seems to have just been a goddess for the Sumerians, the oldest Sumerians. But later on, certainly by the first millennium BCE, Inanna and Ishtar, the Akkadian version, were definitely associated with the cycles of Venus. And Inanna's descent to the underworld is one of the prototypical myths for initiation and a prerequisite step for the death and rebirth of the old into the new. So this story is a little bit interesting to look at. Inanna was the queen of the heavens, and she was a very ambitious goddess. She had a very high status among the Sumerians, but she was ambitious and she was constantly looking to expand her authority. One example of this is in the story of when she meets with her uncle Enki or Ea, who has the divine decrees of the universe in his possession. And she gets him drunk and she tricks him into giving her these 14 me's. They're called M-E is a me, or the me's, these divine ordinances. She takes them back to her own city of Uruk, or Erech, as it was called in Sumerian. And when Enki becomes sober, he tries to get them back, but he has no success. So in this way, she's able to develop Uruk into the primary city in the ancient Sumerian civilization. And but this was not enough. She was queen of the heavens, but one day she decides that she wants to also be queen of the underworld. So she decides to go down to the underworld and visit her sister, Ereshkigal. And she decides that she knows this is going to be a dangerous trip. Normally, people who descend into the underworld are never allowed to come back up. But she has the idea of taking over rulership there. And she clothes herself, or she arms herself with 7 of these divine decrees, or me's, which she got from Enki. She also tells her page that in case she doesn't come back, that he should go to the gods and get them to help her out. So she has a definite purpose of taking over the underworld. And she appears at the gate, however, and she tells the gatekeeper, "Oh, I'm here to visit my sister because she lost her husband, and I'm going to help her in her mourning." And so the page at the underworld, gate of the underworld, goes to Ereshkigal. He says, "Your sister is here, but she's armed and clothed in all these divine ordinances. What should I do?" And Ereshkigal, she immediately knows that what her sister is up to. And she says, "Have her disrobe herself as befits the rules of the underworld." So the page has Inanna remove one of the items or one of the pieces of clothing, as it's told in the story of Ishtar, at each of the seven gates until Inanna appears naked before Ereshkigal. She then sits on Ereshkigal's throne, which enrages the universal order. The Anunnaki, they pass judgment on her, and Inanna is killed. However, her page, when Inanna doesn't return, goes to Enki, who sends some assistants who trick Ereshkigal into letting Inanna go back to the upper world. However, she has to send a substitute. Inanna sends her husband, who seems to be partying and having a good time instead of mourning the loss of his wife. She sends Dumuzi to the underworld. And this is how the whole cult of Dumuzi started. However, he was seen also as a god of rebirth, and this happened because his sister, Garashima, felt so bad that her husband was stuck in the underworld that she agreed to change places with him every 6 months. So there's a lot of material in there which later got distributed into later myths. And eventually the cult of Dumuzi became an influence on the Christ mythos, and the figure of Inanna Ishtar as the morning star and the queen of the heaven became integrated in the figure of Mary. But for modern use, it's useful to look at this myth at what it reveals in terms of the psyche. And the descent into the underworld has been used by Jungian psychologists to represent the descent of the ego or the persona into the confrontation with the shadow. So the ego or persona would be Inanna in this case, who only shows her brightness, but has not embraced the dark aspect of herself, which she projects onto her sister Ereshkigal. These seven attributes that she has to let go of, I suspect, could be interpreted as the way we misuse our planetary abilities or motivations to prop up our false self. Stephen Arroyo also talks about how in becoming whole, we need to release our attachment to the misuse of different planets. So a misuse of the sun would be an attachment to being somebody special. The misuse of the moon is the attachment to security or emotional relationships or family. Too much attachment to Mercury is being seen as somebody who is intelligent or always or very knowledgeable in some way, promoting communication in a very advanced way. Venus is, of course, being attractive or having love or finances, money. Mars would be having your own way, aggressiveness, or assertion, self-assertion. Jupiter is being big, having more. Saturn is laying down the rules, having authority, etc., etc. Anyway, so letting go of these the false attachments to the use of these planets are the prerequisites of embracing the shadow. You can't allow the shadow into the conscious personality without seeing how you have been the negative use of the planetary energies that have been propping up your false sense of self. Once you've done that, of course, you can, just like Inanna, you can reclothe yourself. So when she goes back to the surface, she at each gate, she's able to reclothe herself, reclaim these attributes. But now she is going to be using them in the upper world in a higher sense of herself. So this is a very useful myth to take with you in this Venus period. One last point that I want to make has to do with the Venus star period. The conjunctions of Venus take place approximately every 1.5 years, and they do so in about 150 degrees opposite from each other. And form sorry, not opposite each other, in 150 degrees from each other. And as such, and this is completed in an 8-year period. So they form a kind of star here, and the head of the period is here in Aries. So this is a Venus star point made for the moment of birth, represented by this conjunction. So what does the Venus star point mean? Well, you work from the head. You can also use this in your birth chart, but I'm not going to go into that here. Basically, the two conjunctions of the Venus and Venus and the Sun before are called the receiving hand and foot, and the two conjunctions after the head are called the giving hand and foot. So what does this mean? The two conjunctions before the birth are the receiving hand and foot. Now, the receiving foot was in Leo 2023. So this was a conjunction this is feeding the current period. So what you learned in August 2023 about being a unique person, a unique identity, feeds this current conjunction. The Gemini conjunction was also at the Jupiter in this chart. So that's reaffirming the importance of what you learned in June 2024, July 2024. And it was June 2024 about acquiring and sharing learning information. Then we have the head right now. Those energies feed the current, so you can use what you learned in those periods in what you're doing right now. And what you do right now is going to feed the current, the coming two conjunctions. So these are coming up in January, which I mentioned, establishing authority in Capricorn, and again in Scorpio, when it's going to be conjunct the black moon in the current chart. And this is going to be represent how you're going to be eliminating obsolete forms and transforming these Venus values. So in summary, just about yourself personally again, since the 2nd of February, we have been in a period of rethinking our values, relationships, and self-worth and finances, financial situation. Last night, shortly after midnight on the 23rd of March, there was a meeting with the light and clarity of the sun. So now we become conscious of the changes in these areas that we've been feeling or initiating since the 2nd of February, and that should be further put into place. And between the 5th and 16th of May, we will start rounding off the new initiatives that we're taking in this area. And around the 6th of January, we should see the results of this whole period. If you're interested in finding out more about what this all means to you, or more about the astrology of the invisible luminaries, I invite you to come to my website, which is www.devlinderpraktijk.nl. You can also click on the tab for English. My email, devlinderpraktijk@live.nl. I've also got an Instagram and Facebook page and YouTube channel, Astrology of the Invisible Luminaries. And I've also been posting some of my masters and published information on academia.edu. You can find me there under Charlotte Wenner. Thank you for joining me again, and I look forward to seeing you at our next meeting of structural astrology noetic astrology on Sundays.